strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ? Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal? If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in.
Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the RoundTable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees and what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis Prograis. I'd love, that sounds like a...
Old, I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then...
That would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows...
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now. And he ain't going to fight. I bet you anything. He's not going to fight somebody as good as John Ryder. What's going on, everybody? This is D-Style, and let's go ahead and get this show on the road. To everybody join us live or on the archive, hit that like button. Share this video on all your social media platforms. We got quite a panel for you today. Special guest of the union, of course, Steve Kim joined us here. How's it going, Steve?
Ladies and gentlemen, great to join you.
Yes, for sure. We got Crystal from Women Crushing the Wednesday joining us. Shout out to her that we're off this week. Catch them next week every Wednesday. Joe B from Racer Reporter, as always, join us. Check out the Roundtable next week on his channel on Racer Reporter. George Cepeda from Zapata Boxing Brand Podcast. I think I pronounced that 2 different ways in one sentence. Great. All right. It's Lyndon from Boxing Deep Dive. How's it going? Like always, make sure you subscribe to his channel, guys. And of course, Coach Malachi Williams. How's it going, Coach?
Yeah, everything is good, fam. Everything is good.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
That's right.
I'm tired.
a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. Let's get right to it. Steve. So today I saw that apparently Eddie Hearn spoke on IFL, and he said, hey, he was talking to Sampson Lukowitz. Hey, let's make this Canelo Benavidez fight. And apparently Sampson says, but he's already said before he will not go to the zone with David for whatever reason. But now he's saying, no, it has to be for the U.S. rights. It has to be on Amazon Prime. Because apparently that's he's going to call the shot. So if Canelo wants the David sweepstakes, you got to go to Amazon Prime. What do you think?
Well, I spoke to someone about this, and here's the issue. It's not an out-of-bounds request if you actually have your side putting up some of the money. And here's the problem with this equation. This is not a 50-50 A side, B side. This really is literally like 80-20, 90-10 in terms of the revenue split that we're talking about. We've already heard about some of the numbers being thrown out. It is amazing that certain fighters within certain companies believe that they have all this leverage that doesn't exist. Now, my understanding is I believe Mungia is going to get this fight May 4th, and it'll most likely land in Las Vegas. What I was told was this is basically a last-ditch effort to give the impression that they wanted to fight, that they were willing to make all the necessary sacrifices, and almost one last attempt or at bat to smear Canelo Alvarez. I believe it was a fait accompli that they were headed in the opposite direction, at least for this particular fight. And I read something on ESPN. I think my old buddy Mike Coppinger wrote that they're moving on to a June fight with the nail Alexander Gavozic. But I don't understand this. All these fighters who suddenly think that they have the leverage to talk about U.S. territories, television rights, and all that other stuff. The bottom line is this. You either want the fight or not. And I think David has to understand one thing. If you want the fight, you're going to have to give up a lot of things. And I just think there's always like this one thing that's in common with these fighters who want the A sides to bend over backwards to placate them. So, but when it's all said and done, I don't think you're going to see this fight May 4th. It's just my particular view. We're going to have Mungia as the B side for Canelo, and it's going to be Benavidez hammering the nail.
Oh man, oh man. What do you make of Canelo? Obviously, I know you wrote an article about everything, but if you kind of could put in words for us, what Canelo leaving PBC, what are you hearing? What's your kind of hypothesis of what you believe happened in that situation?
Oh, I think it's very simple what happened. I spoke to someone, I believe it was on Monday night, someone that was intimately involved in the discussions, who was associated and working with and for Canelo Alvarez. His exact words were, Steve, there were 3 specified fights with 3 specified amounts / minimums attached to those fights. And then at the end, they tried to switch the fights and they tried to switch the money. And in boxing, when someone like that says switch the money, that means they want you to take a haircut. In other words, they want you to take 70% or 80%, because no one ever says, hey, when we're switching the money, you're not getting a raise. You're basically getting a declining amount. And at the end of the day, look, Canelo is who he is. And that's the one thing. It's like a beautiful woman that'll always have a date on a Friday night. He's coveted. I don't know if a lot of fighters under that banner of the PBC would have the type of leverage to say, I want my contract lived up to the letter of the law, or I will just merely walk away, because he'll have a lot of different suitors and networks and promoters willing to pay the freight. So that's really what happened, is that the original deal. And I'm just wondering, guys, why don't promoters just try to one fight at a time, get the fight that everyone wants? But when you start getting stuck into these events, and this is what I do not understand, and I'll make this clear, I want the Benavidez fight. I think that's the fight that should be happening. But at the same time, nobody put a gun to Al Heyman or PBC's head to sign that original 3-fight deal. And who in the world thought, okay, so if you want 3 fights with Canelo, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do both inactive Charlos and a welterweight. Who thought that was a good idea?
Wow. One thing I want to ask Steve, if just to play at devil's advocate here, if PBC was saying, look, we don't want to pay that much for Jamal, let's say, even though contractually, let's say they're obligated, in a way, doesn't that make PBC the good guys in a way? Like, hey, we don't want to give people a crappy fight for that amount of money?
Yeah. Look, I don't disagree. As I wrote in my article, 2 things can be true at once. Did PBC breach to the letter of the law their agreement? And should fighters be protected? Because it's all about fighter protection, right? Athlete empowerment. They got to get that bag, right? Even if they already have $500 million in the bank, they still got to get that bag. So yes, but at the same time, did Canelo avoid, duck, or dodge Benavidez and then use that breach as a crutch? Yeah, I think both things can be true.
Okay. Interesting. Coach Malachi, anything you want to ask Steve, or any comment you have that you want to say about the situation? What's on your mind, brother?
You mean with the Canelo Benavidez situation? Me personally, as I said when I spoke with Steve before, I was like, man, these guys at the PBC was playing hardball as it relates to, hey, if you want to make a fight with our fighters, you got to leave your situation, your promotional company, drop whatever, and come over here and make the fight. That's what it is. Take it or leave it or whatever, right? So now David Benavidez has to be willing to do that. And if you don't do that, then, hey, you on the wrong side of the street, whatever. I think this is karma coming back to bite them. And David Benavidez has to make a decision. Do you be loyal to your advisor who's supposed to work for you? And I say that facetiously. Or do you do what you need to do in order to make the fight? And if he, do like Daniel Jacobs, leave, go to the DAZN and make that fight with Canelo if it presents itself. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah, Coach, I mentioned this in my column that can be read on snack.com. There are times when these same individuals talk about crossing the street. You're on the wrong side of the street. And then other times they play crossing guard. And here's the thing that gets me. As an advisor or as a manager, you have a fiduciary responsibility to do the best thing financially or economically for your client. So if you are that person for David Benavidez, whoever that is, whether that's Al Heyman as the advisor or Sampson Lukowicz as the promoter, which theoretically a promoter doesn't look for the fiduciary interest of their fighter, but it's a little different in this instance. Do I tell you to take a much smaller purse on a much smaller scale in terms of the impact of the fight against the nail instead of saying, you know what, we may not like this deal with Canelo, but it's still a high payday. And if you win that fight, we are now the biggest star in boxing below heavyweight. It's almost a rhetorical question of which fight is a bigger opportunity. But again, we've seen this before. I'm still trying to figure out how Rolly Romero, the erstwhile Amazon superstar, is taking less money to fight Pitbull instead of Ryan Garcia.
Oh man, that's a great. But by the way, shout out to Ring IQ Boxing Talk with a 199 super chat. Says Sampson just exposed who the real problem is. Also from Ring IQ, Fury will lose, Beeb. I want your soul, he says. And shout out to True Media Boxing Radio. That is Coach Malachi who's joining us here today. Let's get the likes up and share this live. 100, I agree. Make sure you guys hit the like button, by the way, especially also if you're listening on the archive. We definitely appreciate you guys. Crystal, anything you wanted to say regarding the situation or any question you have for Steve?
So, not necessarily for Steve, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sampson is being inducted into a Hall of Fame this year, right? So is he potentially putting leverage on his own fighter because he know he can get more? Do he know he worth is more than what Canelo is offering?
Yeah, there's certainly a theory that, right, build your value up. This is interesting. And this is where I will defend David Benavidez. If he was an Avi Yildirim level-like fighter, he would have gotten the fight. This is where the inequity of boxing comes in. David Benavidez is being punished for his own talent and in how dangerous he really is. Same thing happened with Gennady Golovkin back in, 2016, when the WBC tried to leverage Canelo to fight him. And once they did, he just said, all right, I don't even need your belt. And literally, Mauricio Suleiman wasn't even allowed at Canelo's fights. I know that for a fact, that they would take away comp tickets that the promoters had. And so he scared off everybody with that. But yeah, you're right. Could Benavidez build up his value? I suppose if they get him more active, if he fights more than once or twice a year, he did twice last year, had a pretty good year. But yeah, he could theoretically build his value by continuing to win in dominant fashion and doing it consistently. But remember this, though, it takes two to tango. If Canelo does not want to fight you, there's really nothing anyone can do about it, which I think is unfortunate. I think public pressure is something that he'll have to really gauge going into the future.
Right. Shout out to Calix, 499 super chat. I appreciate you, brother. The other half of HCP from out in New Orleans. Shout out to Steve Kim and Coach Malachi. Rush Hour 4. Watch out for the shooters, fellas. Well, I need the backstory on that one. What's the backstory on that? What's going on?
Oh, well, we've upset some people on Twitter. God, those souls, God, dog it.
I had somebody call me today, told me that I better not show up to the fight in April.
I heard that one, Coach.
Yeah. I get this all the time. I say, I'll be there.
Oh, boy. Yo, Joe Habib, any questions for Steve Kim? Any comments you have on the situation?
No, I was just going to say, you have to look at it two ways. Obviously, as a fan, I agree with Steve. I want the Benavidez fight too, but I try to put myself in the fighter situation. What would I do if I was in the same situation? And it's just like, I'm in a union. We signed 3-year contracts, and we're locked in to the contract. We're supposed to get our 4%, whatever, 5% raise, whatever it's going to be for those 3 years each time. And if the job gets easier, or if maybe we start using automation and we're not, doing as much work as we did before when we signed the contract. Oh, well, things are slowed down, so now we're going to cut your pay. No, we're locked in. Too bad. So if the money was supposed to be what the money was supposed to be, and now it's not, if that's me, I'm gonna kind of shop around and take a walk myself. So that's just the way it is. I don't, hold someone to a standard that I wouldn't hold to myself. Right. So I probably would have done the same thing. As much as I don't like that happened, because it kind of puts a block or in between the Benavidez fight, maybe. I understand where he's coming from. I mean, if PBC made this deal, right? They've been in the business long enough. They should have known, and did their due diligence before they put all this stuff on paper. You know,
Joe,
and to Steve's point, I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah,
and to
go ahead.
Steve's point, I agree with them, because when you do these long-term deals, you never know what the landscape is going to look like 6 months down the road, a year down the road, because things can change so rapidly. And I'll just say this: the Jermell fight was so bad, it was such an underachiever, and now because you're going to put Jamal in there, we talked about this last week. A lot of the casuals are going to think this is a rematch with Jermell. So because Jermell looked so bad, it hurt this fight, and because this fight was damaged because of the Jermell fight, they're looking at it saying, "Oh, we can't sell this fight now, and we're going to take a big loss on this if we don't adjust Canelo's pay." Well, too bad. I mean, that's why you don't do the long-term deal. I agree with Steve 110%. I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think right now at the Charlo barbecue, Sunday dinner, I think both Jermall and Jermell are probably going to fight each other, because one brother must think, man, you just cost me my payday. Thanks a lot. And so here's the thing that is interesting about this, about the way the public reacts. And I get it. This is almost like feeling sorry for a Rockefeller after they lose $100. I mean, look, Canelo's going to be okay. Like, he knows where his next meal is coming from. But why is it that certain fighters, like a Canelo, is expected to fight everybody? And in this case, specifically David Benavidez. I'm with that. That's the standard we should set for guys who get paid that well, who are the stars. And I pointed this out in my column, but when it comes to Tank Davis, it's just all about the money he makes, and there's almost no pressure on him to fight Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, or Devin Haney. So what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. And other times, when a guy like Floyd Mayweather makes an absolute bundle of money against Conor McGregor, it's not about the pride or the integrity or the honor of the sport. It's about, man, that guy got the bag. You know what? I'm fine with that. I absolutely am. I'm a capitalist within a capitalist society. But when Canelo Alvarez is just merely wanting to live up to the parameters of the deal he signed and to get his bag somewhere else, all of a sudden now he is supposed to uphold the honor of this business. Why? It's the double standard, no standard.
And Steve, too, if you look at it this way, right? Canelo could very well go to the zone and fight Mungia and probably get a smaller guarantee. But I think Canelo acts on principle. He's an honorable guy. And if you tell him you're going to do something, he wants you to do it. So that's where I think this all comes down to, is like, if you give him your word, he's going to hold you to it. Now, if you had the contract where, you know, there was some wiggle room there, but there wasn't, it seems, the way this has been put out there. So that's what I think. I don't even think it's really about, it is about the money, but it's not about the money. I think it's about the principle. I think it's about the principle.
It is. And Joe, I put this out on a tweet earlier today, but when Sugar Ray Leonard, throughout most of his career, never had a long-term deal. Basically, every fight was a one-off. Especially as you got to the big fight starting in around 1979, going all the way to his retirement, which was like, well, his original retirement after the Hearns fight. So basically what they would do, whether it was a Benitez, whether it was a Tommy Hearns, whether it was Duran twice or whoever, they would basically, and they being Sugar Ray Leonard and his advisor / attorney, Mike Traynor, who was a real ball buster. I mean, he used to give guys like,
I remember him.
Yeah, he was not a boxing guy. He was like a divorce attorney.
He was a lawyer, yeah.
He was a lawyer. But so he said, we're going to change the face of the business because I have a very unique client. And basically, instead of having a 5-fight deal with built-in minimums, and I believe Canelo is this generation's version of Ray Leonard, not in terms of his talent, because he's not as talented, but in terms of his economic power and stature. But basically, they'd go to Bob Arum saying, Bob, we want to make that fight. Make us a deal if you want to be the promoter. This is how much money you have to pay Ray, and this is what we are thinking. So they just went piecemeal every single promotion.
That's a good point.
And I just wonder if with Canelo and the networks and the promoters, if everybody involved would just be happy saying, you know what, we don't want one good fight out of 3. Let's just do one good fight that we're willing to wait for right now and do it. And then we'll start over. But again, with the landscape of today's boxing business, this particular environment, when you're an Eddie Hearn with the Zone or Al Heyman with whatever platform you're on, You want multiple fights, so you lock them in so you can tell your platform or your network, look who I just brought to the table. That's what I call a form of platform protection.
Real quick, Beeb. I actually, speaking of Beeb, I was actually speaking to him on the phone the other day that he should do a one-fight deal. But before I get to the others, Beeb, really quick, go ahead.
Yeah, just last point. And Steve, he had that with Eddie. Like he wasn't locked in with Eddie. He was fight to fight with Eddie. Eddie said that. So that's why he was able to go back to for the PBC for the Plant fight. And the way Eddie does it is he wants to keep you long term, but in a lot of these instances, he does do fight to fights. Like Canelo was not locked into that when he was fighting on DAZN with Eddie, he wasn't locked in.
Yeah,
he could move around.
And Beeb, I want to make this clear. Very few fighters have the stature or the leverage to actually do this or to want it. Because imagine if you're Shakur Stevenson, you know how lucky Top Rank would be to say, okay, Shakur, nice working with you. See ya. You know,
he needs those guarantees, and he needs to be locked in. I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
So Zapata, talk to us, man. Any question you have for Steve or any comment you have in regards to the whole situation here?
Well, Steve, first of all, nice to meet you. Finally, I finally get to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Great seeing you.
First thing I want to know, I have a business. I own a business. I have about 12 employees. Let's say PBC now. Who's going to do business with PBC?
Well, I have a question. If you're a PBC and you run a business, do your employees actually ever go to work, or they just stay home and call in sick the whole time?
Good point. That's a good point, Steve. Good point. Who would, in the long term, this is bad for PBC just in general. A lot of red flags here. Whether they have the money or not, who's going to want to do business with someone who's going to say, well, we can't pay you 35 mil. You got to bail.
You know,
doesn't make sense.
You make a great point, because there's a thing called loss leader, right? And the DAZN had a loss leader in Canelo 5-6 years ago. We're getting rid of pay-per-view. We're giving you Canelo fights just for the subscription. And I'm not so sure any of that ever worked out, or even their pay-per-views with Canelo. But having Canelo on their network is one of the first things that they put on the pamphlet. It's one of the first things that lure you in. And so symbolically, George, to your point, you're right. If you're the PBC about 7, 8, 9 months ago, coming into July 29th, think about this. If you're the PBC and you're one of their pom-pom waivers, one of their unpaid interns, right? You could say, guess what? And on our roster, we got Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, the best fighter in the world and the biggest star in the world. Fast forward to now, a couple days before March, you got none of them. So symbolically, that's not a good look.
So Lyndon, any question you have for Steve, or just comments you have in regards to this whole situation here?
Oh, look, I think the whole thing is that we boil it all down. It's simply, this is the current day way of doing business in boxing. I mean, we don't like it most of the time, but this is the way. And when you're in a position like Canelo Alvarez is, like Mayweather was, and De La Hoya and Pacquiao, these types of guys, they can pretty much run their own race, I suppose. So I just think this is the way it is these days. Canelo's just doing what's best for him. The only thing I will say with all the promotional firms and everything, I think the only one that, in my opinion, really gets the way the boxing business is going at the moment is Eddie Hearn. Now, like Beeb said, he wasn't too stressed because Canelo was with him and he wasn't with him, and he's jumped around a little bit. Eddie Hearn keeps the doors open to whatever might happen down the track, where we've seen Oscar get all butthurt about it, and who knows how PBC are going to react. And so I think Eddie Hearn's the only one that sort of gets it these days. And he's probably my favourite promoter. But I just think Canelo, end of the day, it all boils down. He can do what he wants in this business. He can jump around. PBC, of course, had to agree to let him go as well. So obviously they might have seen Canelo as maybe being more hassle than what he was worth, and the money and everything else, and this circus with the opponent who he's going to choose. So I just think it's the way of the world, and we'll probably see more of it as we go. Canelo's probably undoubtedly the biggest star at the moment, so he's the one that's sort of highlighted. But I just think as we go on, you're going to see this more and more. That the big stars of the sport are going to not sign long-term contracts with anyone, keep the options open, and maybe it works well for the promoters as well, because they can jump around and get the best deal, and the promoters aren't locked in to particular fighters as well, as I think someone said before with Shakur Stevenson. Top Rank would probably like to see the end of him, but he signed to them and that's it. So I just think as we go on, you're going to see a lot more 1 and 2 fight deals where neither fighter or promoter are locked in. So while I want to see the Benavidez fight, I don't blame Canelo for what he's doing as far as his career goes and getting the best deal. But as I said, I think it's just going to be the norm going forward. So I'm not sure what you think of that, Steve. But
Lyndon, I've asked this question of certain people, and me and Cali X have had discussions about it. I've talked about this with Coach Malachi on his show, and some of my inner circle of boxing friends. I ask people, who's the next big star at the Canelo level? From the time that I've covered boxing in the mid-'90s, this has been the lineage. It was really Tyson was kind of like in jail. He hadn't really come out yet, but we're talking about in the mid-'90s. The end of Chavez, then De La Hoya, then came Mayweather and Pacquiao, and then it was Canelo, right? And then some heavyweights. So those were the guys that carried the sport of boxing, and Cotto was certainly a guy that was a franchise. But there was a difference. There was an infrastructure back then where those guys fought a lot more earlier on in their careers and created a fan base. These fighters nowadays, they win a title in their 17th fight at age 23. They become twice-a-year fighters. Canelo, I will always respect Canelo for one thing, and no matter what criticisms I have, by the time he is through, he'll be close to 70 fights. This man put in work. Most careers nowadays, Lyndon, may not even span 40 fights. So how do you get the familiarity within the public, with the general and casual fan base to create interest? Because when Canelo fights, that is a day that you mark on your calendar and you say, hey, honey, we're not going to your in-laws. We're not doing this crap. We're going to stay home and watch Canelo. Who's the next guy? If they're fighting so infrequently as they are, can there even be a Canelo that is created moving forward to this degree, in your view?
Well, I think even in the last 12 months, you've got Terence Crawford who had the opportunity to maybe enter that stratosphere of Canelo, and he's wasted it. Almost a year later, or 8 months, whatever it's been, 9 months, no opponent locked in. I know there's been a lot of talk and everything else, but I think he's being left to rot on the vine. Gervonta Tank Davis is another one. Had that great win over Garcia last year. Well, who's fighting Haney? It's Garcia, 12 months down the track. I'm with you. I don't understand why these guys, these stars are just choosing to fight once, maybe twice per year. And I'm with you. I used to long for the days when Canelo, and back in the day, obviously Chavez and these types of guys fought 3-4 times a year.
Lyndon, you mentioned Shakur Stevenson. Unfortunately, I was at his last fight. Okay. And if I wanted to see objects move around very fast in a circle, I could have stayed for the F1. But so there's a stench to that fight to Edwin De Los Santos, right? But he wins the fight. So I'm thinking, okay, the best way to get over that stench? I would have said to Top Rank, get me back in February or March. Here's the situation with Shakur and Top Rank. They have one fight left remaining. That fight really hurt Shakur's market value as he heads into free agency. And it was reported about a month ago that he turned down a 5-fight extension where he had a $3 million minimum per fight. Again, so that's the minimum. That means no matter if he faces you or me, he's getting $3 million at the very least. He, I think, went way too public and complaining and all that other stuff. And he did not fight early enough, and now he's not going to fight until June. And my understanding is that contract extension that was on the table last month, it is no longer on the table. So a lot of the times, the fighters themselves are their own biggest enemies, in my view.
100%.
Shout out to Drew for the super chat. Sampson, Jose Sr., David are all disingenuous. Moving to 175 for interim to the winner of Bivol versus Archer Peterbiev. Is Aram or Eddie sending their guy to PBC? And thanks for the support, brother. Very interesting take for sure. And I think there's a lot of disingenuous things going on over there for sure. Steve, one more question before I let you go over the talk to us about this press conference. Did you catch any of the press conference today?
I caught some of it. I had some stuff to do. I don't really go to press conferences anymore. And the Ryan Garcia thing is tough for me to kind of stomach. There's a reason why certain people call him cringe Rye. I don't know what to really think. I've always felt that this fight was a lopsided 10-2 decision for Devin Haney. Devin Haney, to me, is too technically sound, fundamentally grounded. And I said this, I've known Devin for a while now. I actually know him pretty well behind the scenes through his work with Snack and Victor Conte. But when Ryan, Tszyu, Tank, and Devin are all basically very talented, bright young prospects. I told Mario, I said, Mario, I'm going to say this right now. Devin is actually the most solid, sound, stable individual out of all of those guys by far. It's the God's honest truth. And I think that has shown to be true. And in that fight, guys, I want to ask everybody, do any of you expect Ryan Garcia to even win 3 rounds on April 20th?
No way.
I thought it was going to go the distance. I actually think Devin may stop him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And the thing is this, Steve, he may be piecing him up so badly that they may throw the towel in that fight.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so tell me, anyone think he wins 3 rounds? Does he make it like even a 7-5 loss?
No.
See, there's strength in numbers here. Now, we may all have to eat crow, but I thought Devin's biggest opponent at 35 at the end was the weight cut. I know what he goes through. Victor Conte's actually had to supervise the weight cuts late at night. And by the time he got into face Lomachenko, he was probably 75% of himself at the very best. I thought he looked very, very impressive, had his legs and his ass underneath him against Regis Prograis. And look, he's not a devastating puncher, but he's a hard, quick puncher that hits you with blind shots.
Sharp.
Yes, he's very sharp. And once you get hit by him, he basically dissuades your forward movement because he hits you in a way that you don't even see it. And you look at Ryan's behavior, I've always felt like Ryan was a little bit, I don't want to say a phony, but he's always performed. But there's been a performative quality to the way he behaves, especially in front of the camera. But is it alarming to me what I've seen the last week or two, or the last 3-4 weeks since the Patrick Bet-David interviews? Look, there are rumors surrounding his personal habits and how he's behaving. I think boxing rewards those who are disciplined, and I don't think he's nearly as disciplined as Devin Haney.
I think he's been hanging out with Kanye West a bit too much, I think.
Yeah,
probably.
By the way, I love the thing that he says. Hey, this is my new girlfriend, this OnlyFans lady, and he goes, and I wonder how the girl felt when he said, "Yeah, it's nothing serious, but this is my girlfriend."
I don't get it either, right? I mean, it is what it is. Steve, any final comments before we let you go, brother?
No, if anyone has any final questions or comments, I got some time here to commiserate.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions, I could stick around for a while.
All right.
Oh, Steve, I do. This is George again. You did see the Patrick Bet-David interview. That was probably one of the most unprofessional interviews I've ever seen from somebody on his show.
No, it is. And you know what's funny? He tries to be this kid from Victorville, who was once a very nice kid, is now trying to be like street or urban, because as he likes to say, he's now like that. Did you know that? He's like that? Just trust me. He says it 50 times an hour now. I'll never forget, George. It was back in 2015 or 16. Golden Boy was doing the club shows or monthly shows at the Velasco Theater. It was Doug Fisher, Beto Duran, and I were the color commentators for Ring TV. And I had only seen Ryan Garcia once. He fought on a local club show in Hollywood. And he was this kid that was making a little bit of waves on social media. And so we kind of knew who he was. And then before we're about to go on the air one time, this is early 2016, I believe, me, Beto, and Doug are lined up in front of the camera. Him and his dad come right up to the camera. And the kid was as nice and as humble as, "Hey, guys, I'm a big fan. Is there any way I can get your pictures?" And we're like, what a nice young man. That kid's going to be good. And now it's like seeing a member from NSYNC or a boy band turn into a punk rocker with a drug habit. It's like, wow, what happened to you? Because here's the funny thing, George. So he signs with Golden Boy, and we're thinking, wow, this kid's marketable. What a nice young man, good looking. By the end of a year, this is a true story, he was literally calling Golden Boy, complaining about the things me, Beto, and Doug would say during his fights. It became a problem very early with him and his family.
Wow.
So what contribute to this? Why do we think there's this significant change for him?
Narcissism. And again, I don't want to play dime store Sigmund Freud here, but he got very popular very quickly. Nobody has exploited or utilized social media effectively as he did. And look, he's very telegenic. He's one of the few boxers that can be on the magazine covers other than Ring or Sports Illustrated. He's got a striking look, but fame and attention can be very, very addictive. I think they've actually done studies on it. And you start to live in your own parallel reality. And look, he is the breadwinner for that whole family. His parents no longer parent him. Okay, so he runs the roost there. And there's been a lot of issues publicly with his past relationships that have all been online. And he is going to be a case study one day, in my view, about the power and the danger of social media.
It might happen, yeah. He's a case for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think he's actually a serious fighter? Do you think he's more interested in the social aspect and the social media than actually creating some sort of legacy in boxing? He just seems like he's more of the YouTuber side or Instagram rather than being a serious boxer. What do you think?
Lyndon, that's a very interesting question, because someone said to me earlier today on Twitter, like, Steve, I told you he was just a YouTube boxer. And I think that's too far. He's a serious look. Okay, let me just take that word out. He's a legitimate professional prize fighter.
Yeah.
He's beaten some guys that are pretty solid, like Javier Fortuna, got off the deck to fight Luke Campbell. There's no YouTuber doing that. There's no 135-pound version of Jake Paul doing that. Okay. Do I think he's all that good? I don't think he's elite. The term that comes to my mind is that he's a lot more sizzle than steak. In other words, he is a social media creation, and he's like that great-looking young actress who is an absolute bombshell. She's beautiful to look at. Don't give her too many lines in a movie. She's not that good of an actor. So a lot of this is artificial in terms of his popularity, but that is the but that's the thing about boxing. You can cheat or game the system if you are marketable. He's just like Oscar De La Hoya, except without the ability to fight.
Yeah, without a great jab too.
Or left hook.
But that's for sure. This has been great, Steve. We definitely appreciate you giving us your time. Anybody have any other questions for Steve before I let him go?
It's great to talk to you, Steve.
Absolutely, guys. Great to meet you, and I'll continue to watch, and have a great night, guys. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, man.
All right, take care, Steve.
Bye.
Thank you,
See you later,
Steve.
Coach.
All right. So Coach Malachi, what's going on with the shooters? And they're going after them. What's going on? Are they going to come to the show? Are they going to shoot us? What's going on?
I don't know, man. These guys, man, I sit back and it's funny. I think I feel like a psychologist, because I understand the mindset of these guys very, very well. And, I pretty much, and I make mockery of these guys. I really enjoy making mockery of them. And I think it kind of pissed them off because, you don't take trolls seriously because there's nothing to take serious. You know what I mean? So they ain't going to do shit. I mean, I was at this is the honest to God truth. I ain't going to say his name, but I was at a fight in Vegas, and I saw one of the guys who was a part of the Alphabet Boy community at one point. And literally, they made a video dissing me that somebody sent to me. And the guy saw me, and he literally hugged me and said he wanted me on his show. And gave me his phone number. I'm dead ass serious.
Hey, he's your biggest fan. Right.
I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know his name, but then no, I remembered the name when he told me. I said, "Oh, this is the video that Drew sent me. Oh, that's who this guy is." And then right when I walked by the press conference, the dude just hugged me. Like, "Yeah, man, man, people said you said this about me." I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know who you are. And if I did say it, I stand on what I said, And that was it. And dude just hugged me, wanted to give me some sugar, and gave me his phone number, and he called me.
On me.
I'm
in the
dead ass
name
serious,
of
bro.
love. There.
Yeah, I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about these guys, man.
I hear you, brother. Shout out to, by the way, if you guys haven't already hit the like button, let's go around the round table here. Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia set for New York City at the press conference. Do you want to watch the fight more now, less now? Are you excited for this fight? Crystal, let's start with you.
Well, I have to say, Devin Haney, I've been watching him for years. So I will be watching for Devin Haney purpose. And I expect him to take him out. And I expect him to take him out sooner than later, especially after the press conferences. Now, this erratic behavior is odd to me. from Ryan Garcia. Sure, they perhaps they are not in the peak of the camp at this point, but what in the world is he doing? I'm not sure. It's hard for me to follow, and I do worry about him a little bit because in he particular camp, is it true that perhaps there is no one around him who genuinely care for him in particular, right? Not just him as a boxer, but there's other folks in the same camp. It make me wonder, are we caring for the boxer? Are we in it for the money? You know, someone else hit that right on the nose today. I see it on the X that they say, Mr. Brown, he say, you know, some of these lads don't have genuine people around them who actually love them. They in it for self gain, right? So, you know, perhaps he need to look at that. I'm not recommending that he change coaches every fight because we know he already have that issue also. But I will look for an outstanding performance by Mr. Haney. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Lyndon, if anything, has the press conferences done anything for you? Are you looking forward to this fight?
Well, if anything, the press conferences have turned me off a little bit, but that will come and go. That's no drama. But look, as a boxing fan, I can't wait for the fight. I mean, these big fights, I mean, they come around so rarely these days that I can't wait. I think the event will be great. As much as I don't necessarily rate Ryan Garcia as a fighter, I still like what he brings to the event. We've seen it. So, look, I know I don't like to call them the casuals out there, but the fans that sort of just follow it, you know, on a part-time basis, they love all this stuff. I hate it. I really do. I know in every fight there's got to be a little bit of back and forth, and I get that. But when you've got this constant just in their face, and it's almost to the script and all, it's ridiculous. But I can't wait for the fight itself. All that aside, but for Ryan Garcia, I just don't know where he's at. The guy looks like he's self-imploded. We saw the Bernard Hopkins and De La Hoya situation, and now suddenly they're all cool. I just don't know where he's at, and I just wonder or sort of worry about his mindset going into the fight. We know Devin Haney is going to be switched on. We know he's going to be 100% ready to go. What Ryan Garcia are we going to have turn up? And I think it was mentioned that he tends to change trainers every fight. This guy has no stability whatsoever. He's been at war with his promoters. I just think he's his own biggest enemy. Now, I really hope he can get himself together because the sport needs guys like him. And I think it was Beebs who said before, I think that, you know, he has the same appeal as an Oscar De La Hoya. He just can't fight as good. And that's okay. And these days, if he makes a hell of a lot of money and is remembered, that's great. But I just don't know where he's at mentally. And are we going to get an Oliver McCall situation at some stage? Who knows? But I just hope the prime Ryan Garcia turns up. We get a hell of a fight because I think if he turns up mentally and physically ready to go, I think he actually gives Haney some issues. But does he win? No way. I think Haney wins very, very comprehensively. 9 rounds to 3, 10 rounds to 2.
As soon as Lyndon said that, I was picturing Ryan in the corner crying. And I like this. Oh man, Beeb, I'm gonna go a different direction with you a little bit. Are you worried that Ryan might pull out of this fight?
When you asked me that yesterday, I was like, nah, he's not gonna pull out. But today he just looked very unstable, very erratic. He looked very weird, spacey. And then Devin asked him, he says, "You're gonna show up? You're gonna be there? You're gonna be there?" And he didn't answer him. And then his dad's like, "Ryan, you gonna answer him? Ryan, like his dad was worried, like if he's gonna show up or not." I was like, "Shit, what the fuck's going on here?" I hope he shows up. And I agree with Lyndon. I do think like the fans, a lot of the fans, especially the younger kids on TikTok and obviously on YouTube, they like to see a lot of this theatrics, right? But I don't know. I just think that he came off really poor today. Ryan did, and I don't see this being a competitive fight. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, and I hope it would be a competitive fight. But I just don't see this being a competitive fight. And I just really don't think Ryan is all there right now. He just doesn't seem to be all there, to be honest with you.
Coach Cook, what's going on?
The Ryan Garcia situation, I never seen him like this. He seems kind of lethargic. To me, in my opinion, just on my personal observation, it's obvious he's on something. I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. The boy on some type of drugs. I think it's either that or he's a damn good actor. He's Denzel Washington. He's Robert De Niro. He's James Earl Jones. He's Joe Pesci. Like, he's one of the greatest actors, and he deserves every Oscar known to man from here until infinity. So it's obvious that he's on something. In my opinion, he don't stand a snowball chance in hell in beating Devin Haney. Maybe he can land that lucky left hook. But outside of that, who am I going to trust in a gunfight? A guy, Ryan Garcia, who's known to freestyle and do what he wants in between, in the fights, in the rounds, like he did in the last fight when Derrick James was cursing him out, telling him to stop trying to do that fake ass shoulder roll. You're not Floyd Mayweather. What the hell are you doing? Or someone like a Devin Haney, who's very fundamentally sound, very disciplined. He's going to stick to the script. And so I'm not going to bet a dime on Ryan Garcia. Something's wrong with him. I don't know what it is. I don't feel sorry for him. He's rich. He has plenty of money. He'll be okay. So it is what it is, man. I remember when I was in LA and me and Steve Kim was together, and I was at Joe Gooson's gym, and I interviewed Joe Gooson. And he told me, I asked him about Ryan Garcia. This is prior to him fighting Tank Davis. And he said that, well, you don't train. I asked him about training Ryan Garcia. And he said, you don't train someone like Ryan Garcia. You just, let me see. He said, you just assist him. Ryan Garcia is, and when he said that, Joe Gooson, I was like, man, he don't stand a snowball chance in hell in being Tank. And, that's what he told me. I have it on video. This guy's untrainable. And I spoke to people at Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. They said the same shit. They was like, man, something wrong with this. This kid is, he's that's why he's looked upon as he literally looked like somebody from a boy band, Menudo, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. He's cute. He has dimples. He's a tenderoni magnet. Mean on TikTok, mean on Instagram. But outside of that, I don't take that dude serious. He's done.
George Zapata, what do you feel about this fight? How are you feeling after these press conferences?
Well, when you made the introductions first, D-Style, and you said Coach Malachi was going to be here, I said, thank God someone's going to address the elephant in the room and leave it to Coach to say it. Not me. I didn't want to say it, but he's right. The whole press conference in general, from De La Hoya to Bernard Hopkins to Ryan Garcia, was just a total catastrophe. But if you notice the difference here, Devin Haney, I've watched him for years. Devin Haney, I met him out in Las Vegas. Very nice guy, very disciplined, very on target. Is so opposite. This fight's not going that long. He is so disciplined. Devin Haney is your epitome of a champion. Excuse me. Never out of shape, always in the gym. Never problems. Never see any problems with his camp. Always an issue in Ryan's camp. That is never good when you're on that elite level like that. Never good. Not going long this fight.
All right. Well, guys, there's a pretty good fight this weekend. It's going a little under the radar. Just want quick predictions here. Any take you have? It's forgive me, I'm not pronouncing this right. Kholmatov against Raymond Ford. Now they're each 12-0, 11 knockouts for Kholmatov, and Raymond Ford is 14-0. Raymond Ford is a matchroom fighter. He's going to be going over to ESPN, all right, and on the Top Rank card. The odds have this very, very close, razor thin, and I agree with the odds makers that this is a hard fight to call. I can't even, this is for the vacant belt that Lee Wood vacated, by the way, 126-pound WBA championship of the world. But if now this is the way it should be done. I don't like it when guys get elevated. We're gonna elevate you from the no. You fight another top-rated dude and you earn it when it's a vacated belt. So I do like that about this right here. The WBA is doing the right thing in that department. Great fight. Raymond Ford looked good against Magdaleno. I thought Magdaleno was going to give him a lot of problems. Didn't. The timing was on point. Kholmatov, solid fighter, tough fight to call. This is going to be on March 2nd. Really good fight. Beeb, what you got in this fight?
Yeah, this is a great fight. You got a guy in Kholmatov who's a boxer puncher. He's a pressure fighter. He's a swarmer. Has one punch knockout power, but doesn't have to overly rely on it. He could set the shots up, put the shots together. More of a mid-range to inside type fighter. And you made a great comparison. You compared him to Gennady Golovkin, and obviously he's not Gennady Golovkin, but there are some similarities there because Gennady Golovkin was a very very good pressure fighter. He used to swarm his opponents too, and he can change levels. He mixes up the shots very well. He's not adverse to going to the body, and Ford reminds me a lot of Devin Haney. He's a southpaw featherweight version of Devin Haney because he's an outboxer. He can pot shot from the outside. He's really quick with his hands and his feet. So this is a great matchup when you got a boxer puncher versus kind of like a pure boxer. It's going to somewhat be a cat and mouse game for as long as Ford can, stay on his toes and be elusive. And like I said, pot shot from the outside. But I think at some point, Kholmatov is just such a relentless type fighter. I think he's going to catch up to him. I think he's going to be able to, push him up against the ropes and really keep him on his back foot a lot more than he probably likes Ford. And I could see Ford surviving this fight because of his movement and because he's cagey and he's really skilled enough to know how to hang in there. But I think he's going to be on the defensive for long portions of this fight, especially in the second half, because again, he's going to have to be dealing with that constant pressure. And I'm going to go with Kholmatov here by a pretty clear decision. Okay. I think it's going to be a pretty clear decision. And I think the first half of the fight will be somewhat competitive, but once Kholmatov starts piling on the pressure round after round after round, I think, Ford will start to slow down. He won't be able to move as much, and then he'll tie him up and try to, look for breaks in the fight. But I don't think that'll be enough for him to win rounds, in my opinion.
Zapata, will the craftiness of Ford or the pressure of Kholmatov and the power? What do you got?
I think B read my notes. I think it's going to be similar to that. Kholmatov, will eventually get to him. He's a slick fighter. Ford's a slick fighter. Will survive, I think, 1 through 6. But the pressure for Kholmatov will put on him. I think eventually. I don't think he'll stop him because I don't think he'll hit him flush enough. But I think he'll win a wide decision. And that's my opinion there.
Okay. All right. Coach, who do you got in this fight, brother?
You know what? That's a really, really good question because Kholmatov, he's a really good pressure fighter. He's gonna. I don't think Ford has enough to. Raymond has enough to keep him off of him. To be fair, he's gonna have to be very slick in that pocket, do a lot of catching, stuff like that, slipping, blocking, because of the type of pressure that he's gonna be up under. And I don't know if he go 12 rounds. What type of judges do you have? Do you have judges who like pressure fighters? Do you like judges who how they gonna judge the fight? Because Ford is gonna have to be slick on his on the back foot and stuff like that. The way I'm looking at this fight, I think Kholmatov. I think maybe the pressure might be a little bit too much in this fight for Ford. He's gonna have to really, really be in shape and. If he can, if he can withstand the pressure, be calm in the pocket, kind of like a Shockey Foster, he's kind of calm under pressure. If he can do that, maybe he can pull it out. But I'm leaning towards Kamatov myself.
Okay, all right. Lyndon, first of all, you guys going to get this fight by any way in Australia? That's number one.
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
we don't. No, there's especially with the football starting over here on the weekends, it's all about that on our channels, unfortunately. But I like the fight, and I agree with you, D-Style, that it's great to see the number 1 and 2 ranked challengers actually getting a crack at the belt. No elevations, no handing people belts. I really like that, and it's not a bad fight. I think I like Ford. He sort of reminds me a little bit of a southpaw version of Adrian Broner back in the day. I think he's got some really good skill. Kholmatov is that typical Russian fighter, hard as nails. I like him because he throws lots of punches and he throws them all hard, and he looks pretty fit and strong. The only probably difference between the two, I think Ford, obviously his last fight with Magdaleno was a really good win. Obviously Magdaleno was a former world champion. I don't think Kholmatov's really been tested anywhere near as much. If you look at the records of his opponents on BoxRec, they're not overly great, I don't think. A couple sort of in there, but I think the fact that he's just a big, strong featherweight with that great work rate, good volume of punches, I actually think he chops Ford down as the fight goes, and I think he can stop him late. I think he can stop him in 10 or 11 rounds. Depends on how long Ford, if he's got the ability and maybe even a little bit of the power to keep Kholmatov off him. 12 rounds is a long time to go, and I just think that Kholmatov might get to him as the fight goes on and stop him in 10 or 11.
I agree with you. I actually have Kamatov by late stoppage. I think pressure bust pipes, and I think it's going to be a little too much, but we can't count Ford out. Crystal, can Ford take the title back to Matchroom? What do you think?
So both of these lads start when they was young, right? They've been boxing for years, and I love to watch both of them. They're both very active. Let me tell you, Kholmatov, I feel like the resume is not nearly as strong as the resume I see with Mr. Ford. I will say that. However, this fight in particular, you're right. We have two top-notch lads here, and they similar in age, similar in experience to an extent. I think perhaps Mr. Ford have a little bit of an edge on the experience, but I think the height factor take a play here, right? I think that Kholmatov, not only will he apply the pressure, but he tall, and he will tend to chop down Mr. Ford. Do I think he will stop him? Have Mr. Ford have he chin check? I don't believe so. I never see him hurt. So I don't know that he will actually stop him. I can see it going to a 12 round, and I can see Kholmatov winning. I won't say that Mr. Ford won't win a round, because I think perhaps he could early in the fight. But I think you're right, as others have said already. I think towards the end of the fight, Kholmatov will get that gain, and he will get the decision.
All right, there we go. That's going to be a great fight. By the way, for those that don't know, Venado Lopez will be on the undercard of that event, and I'm assuming he'll probably fight the winner of this fight. And there's no doubt in my mind that either one of these two guys would have beaten Lee Wood. There's no doubt in my mind. They're actually getting the tougher fight for fighting for the vacant belt, and they would have been fighting the champion, in my opinion. Well, that's just what I think. Amanda Serrano is going to be fighting Nina Meinke. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that right. I do apologize. In a 12-round title fight, the odd makers have this as a very, very one-sided fight. They just do. It's basically a mismatch if I look at what the odds makers are telling me. Although the girl is in a winning streak, but it is 12 rounds. Do you think Serrano is raising her profile here, despite, she's doing 12 rounds, right? But are we happy with the level of opposition here? George, to start with you.
Well, I'm a big Amanda Serrano fan. I'm Puerto Rican. When I seen her fight at Madison Square Garden. Haven't heard an innovation like that since the Miguel Cotto fought in the Garden, on Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend. Fighting 12 rounds. I mean, for her, she can do it. If it goes 12, I don't know if it'll go 12. I mean, the odds makers are usually right. 9 times out of 10, they're the only place that has a casino in the desert, windows open, air conditioner on full blast. They don't lose money. So if you're going to go by those numbers. Yeah, but does she needs a fighter. She needs a Katie Taylor type to match up against. I don't know if there is anyone out there right now other than Katie Taylor that they could make that high profile fight for her. So unless she's fighting a high profile girl, I don't know. I don't think this does nothing to raise her profile other than she's out there. She's on Jake Paul. Jake Paul's on her card, but with Jake Paul, that helps a lot. I don't know, but I mean, if that's right, Amanda Serrano minus 3,500, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there you go. I mean, that says it alone. That's the first time I'm seeing that. Yeah, this is, I think, a stay busy fight for her. I don't think it's going to go too long. Wow.
Do you see this as making history, the way they're kind of promoting it? Like she's making history, etc. Was it worth giving up the WBC belt pretty much?
No. No. Well, why would you give it? I mean, just to make history, it's going to be it's not going to be a big bump in making a big stamp in women's boxing. I don't think, if something that they all got behind, maybe, but I don't think so. I think keep the belt. The belt's the one thing, and that you need something for women boxing. Keeping the belts together, I think that's important.
Joe Beeb, I'm just going to fight in Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? In front of her people, it's a big deal, kind of. You know.
Yeah, judging by some of the stuff she posts on social media, she's got a lot of endorsement deals over there. She's got she does like commercials and stuff as well. She's very popular over there, so it's good that she's going to go back to Puerto Rico and fight. And the crowd loves her there. A lot of the fans love her there. I just haven't been a big fan of a lot of these fights because they're just such mismatches on paper. They have predictable outcomes. I don't think this is going to hurt her profile, but the people, like I said, the people in Puerto Rico, no matter what she does, they're going to love her anyways. But in America, I don't think this helps her, but I don't think it hurts her either. It's almost like, you're stuck in, stuck on stalemate basically. But for me, I would love to see a Katie Taylor fight or an Alicia Baumgartner fight. I'm not so sure we'll get those fights. I do believe she has one foot out the door because she can make a lot of money outside of boxing, and she has been doing pretty well outside of boxing. So I think this may be her last year in the sport, maybe this year or next year, and I think she'll call it a day. But I'm not crazy about this fight. I haven't been crazy about a fight of hers in a long time, with all due respect, because they're just such wide mismatches on paper, and they play out the same way. Like who's the girl she was in there with last time? I actually interviewed the girl, and I can't. Ramos, yeah, I actually interviewed her, and I don't think she won a round. So yeah,
okay.
I can't get excited for this fight.
Coach, how do you feel about this? Like, do you think she's doing something for the greater good? That's kind of how their sound is pitching it to us. Like, hey, I'm doing 12 rounds. This is for all women's boxing. Do you think she's doing herself a disservice because it doesn't seem like the other women that she could make big fights with are on board here with this?
I mean, I do get it. But Amanda Serrano, she's one of my favorite. She is one of my favorite fighters, to be honest with you. I love the war that her and Katie Taylor had. She has a fan-friendly style. She's going to sit right there in the pocket. Maybe sometimes she trade, or she try to get you. She try to slip punches by inches and land her shots as well. So, yeah, I just think she's been in some battles. So I don't know. Maybe this is just maybe this is her. She's due for an easy fight. She fighting in Puerto Rico. She don't want to probably. You get what I'm saying? Have a tough fight on this one. So. I think I do like the fact that they fighting in Puerto Rico. I think if she was fighting more like mainland in the States, it'd be a little different. But it is what it is. She got a good fan base. I really, really like Amanda Serrano. Like I said before, she's one of my favorite fighters. And I'm not tripping. I'm not gonna sit and say I'm jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks for the fight. But I mean, I get it. I think she's put in, she's put in enough work. She deserves a, an easy fight. I just say that.
Okay. So we have a bunch of dudes giving their take, but let's ask the woman on the panel. What does this do for women's boxing, in your opinion? Do you think this is something bigger about this, her doing the 12 rounds, or do you think she should just what do you think, Crystal?
She like to take the credit for the 12 rounds, for the 3-minute rounds, and that's fine. She been doing a fine job. Jake Paul been doing what he's supposed to do with her, right? She have a huge fan base at this point. Thank goodness for the Katie Taylor fight to establish that fan base. Now she a take-home fight, stay busy fight, and perhaps like Joe say, she near the end of her cycle. She fixing to be done with the sport and leave the legacy of I do it 3-minute rounds for the other ladies. I do a 12-minute rounds for the 12 rounds rather for the ladies. I try to build the sport for the ladies, and it's respectable. I can handle that. But do I want this to be her last fight? No, not really. I want her to put a show on that is competitive with the 3-minute rounds and perhaps with 12 rounds. To me, that will solidify her legacy. If she go with both of these with a competitor, and who could that competitor or opponent be? I'm not certain.
Well, I know in a post-fight interview, we had Katie Taylor said she accepted the challenge. She said, "I'll do the 12 rounds if she wants, 3 minutes." She said she even said it would favor me. That's what she said. And then Amanda was asked, like, I think it was on X, and she was like, "Oh, I have an opponent. I said it'd be a big announcement." And somebody asked her, "Is it Katie?" She said, "No." Then who is it? And then she announced this fight. Like, it's a little bit of a letdown to me. I mean, it's got to be honest. Like,
so is she waiting for the winner of Taylor and Cameron?
I don't know what she's doing. To be honest, I don't know what the game plan is here. I think they're just gonna. I think in her mind, Jake Paul keeps paying me to do these fights. You know, even though they're a mismatch on paper, she's not fighting like some social media star. It's still a legitimate boxer she's fighting. It's not like she's not fighting anybody. But I mean, just to put in perspective, the girl she's fighting lost to the girl that is going to fight Sky Nicholson for the vacant belt. So like you're going backwards here, in my opinion. You're not, like, it's not making sense to me. So it's my opinion. But Lyndon, what are your thoughts on this? Are you like, just overall? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, Serrano is one of my favourite female fighters out there. I think she's been great for the sport. But I'm with you. I just don't know where she's at the moment. I applaud her for taking on the 12 threes and being a real advocate for that. I really do. But I've got to admit, since she's signed with Jake Paul, I really struggle to take her as seriously as I did. Now, that shouldn't be against her, but when you're associated with the circus of Jake Paul, as I said, her stock's sort of fallen a little bit for me. But I mean, at 35 years of age, she has to get a move on and make a decision. Does she go for those big fights or have these just almost like keep busy fights? I think this is her 4th fight in the last year, I think, but none of them have been real tests for her. So I would think that she'll be looking at the Katie Taylor rematch. That just is the fight that makes sense. I know here in Australia we're talking about the Sky Nicholson fight, and Sky's been pretty vocal about fighting her. But I also understand why Amanda doesn't really want to fight Sky, because it's not really that progressive fight. But then on the other hand, she takes this fight with Nina. Was it Meinke? Her name is. So I don't know. Who knows? But at 35 years of age, I think she has to go for the quality fights now. I would love to see her distance herself from Jake Paul and go with a legitimate promoter, but that's a different story. But look, let's just hope in the last year or two of her career we get some of those big fights that maybe we haven't seen yet. And as I said, obviously the top of the list is Katie Taylor.
All right, man.
The other girl for the 3rd time. What was her name? Chantel Cameron.
Chantel Cameron, yeah, Cameron.
Yeah, I just, to me, it's like this. I think you made your point. You did a 12-round fight, cool, but I just think she should go for the big fights now. It's my opinion. And if Katie Taylor's willing to take 12 rounds, 3 minutes, then I just don't understand why you're moving any other direction, in my opinion. All right, but that's just me. Let's go ahead and talk about this last topic here. There was a Fighthype interview. WBO president Paco. All right. Now, I'm confused about a lot of things here, but I'm just going by what I read here about the interview. He's got something big in the works. And he also mentioned that Crawford could be the mandatory for the winner of Thurman Tszyu. Now, what's odd about this is that, from my understanding, that was a non-title fight. So the WBO decides that it's not good enough to be a title fight, but now you're talking about the winner of that fight being mandated to fight Terrence Crawford. I'm not understanding the logic here. Maybe I'm just not following. I just don't get it. All right. Like, I'm kind of lost with that. Another thing I'm confused about is, now I know this for a fact that, and both teams have actually confirmed this, they've already been in serious talks. I don't see why the WBO is even needed to do a mandatory. Like, I just don't understand. Like, you're not really needed to make the fight, quite frankly. But that's not here nor there. But hey, that's what it is. Lyndon, what do you make of it?
Well, I just still think it makes the most sense. Obviously, Tim's got his hands tied with, or his hands full with Thurman next month, or this month, sorry. But it's an interesting one because if Thurman beats Tim, he doesn't actually get the WBO belt, of course, because it's a non-title fight. So I'm not sure how all that works. I understand with the WBO champion, he can go up in weight and be the number one challenger, and that's fine. But look, if Tim beats Thurman, as I expect as an Australian, I know it's a little bit different over there, but I expect him to beat Thurman. It does make sense to me. I think Terence Crawford still hasn't got a fight anywhere near planned, 8 or 9 months after his fight with Spence. And for me, the only thing I suppose that comes into it for me is if Tim beats Thurman end of this month, is he ready to go in June or July when Crawford might be ready to fight again? I think he would. But again, as I said, I just think that is the fight that makes sense. Crawford doesn't really want to, he doesn't see Ennis as the fight for him at welterweight. The Canelo fight's obviously not going to happen at this stage. So I see 100% logic in Terence moving up to 154 to take another belt, the 4th belt, and hopefully with the win over Thurman, if it happens that Tim becomes more of a household name over there in the States and we get a June, July, August fight. I just think all things point towards Tszyu versus Crawford if Tim can get past Thurman. I think it'll be a massive fight, not just here in Australia, but obviously in the world. And it's a fight I'd love to see. And probably unlike a lot of the Americans and that over there, I actually think Tim has a better than average chance, let's say. But I'd love to see the fight either way.
Yeah, Lyndon, to follow up with that, do you even think the WBO mandating anything is necessary?
No, I don't. No, not at all. No. Well, look, I think, maybe it is. Maybe if as I said, if Tim wins, then, and if Terence decides to go up to 154, of course they've got to mandate the fight. If Thurman wins, it throws a whole spanner in the works. But I don't know, with sanctioning bodies these days, mate, who knows what goes through their heads. But either way, I don't care whether it's sanctioned or mandated or whatever it is. I just want to see the fight.
All right. Coach Malachi, what do you make of Paco saying here the winner of this fight gets mandated? And let me add this to the question for you. Would you rather see Crawford face Tszyu or Boots Ennis? Because there's a lot of people saying, hey, he's got to face Boots Ennis.
Well, the people who saying he has to face Boots Ennis, what's the premise are they saying that? Boots petition to get the belt. He has the belt. He's not the mandatory. So he's in a situation like a Canelo. If he chooses to fight someone, he can. If he doesn't choose to fight him, he don't have to. So if he moves up to 154, I would definitely love to see that Tszyu fight. I think very highly of Tszyu, pressure fighter. You know, he throws his shots very, with precision for the most part, good body puncher, stuff like that. It's a dangerous fight. It may not be the most popular fight from a fame standpoint, but that's a dangerous fight. And Crawford hasn't been active. He hasn't had a fight since July of last year. And he'll be 37 years old in September. So, and Tszyu has been active. So I think that'll be, that won't be a walk in the park, in my opinion. But we'll see. I rock with Bud heavy, but we'll see as relate to that. So yeah, I would say Tszyu, if you're going to move up to 154, that's the plan. Fight him and, see what happened with the belts at welterweight. Do they let him go? Do they strip him? Whatever. I don't know. I think once he move up, he'll probably end up just officially dropping him. I don't see him coming back to welterweight anyways, to be fair.
Okay. All right. So for you, it's Tszyu over Boots?
Yeah, absolutely. If he's moving up, absolutely. He's not staying in the welterweight division. I know that for a fact. He's not staying there. So yeah, it's Tszyu.
Okay. Crystal, it looks like the Bud fight with Canelo's not going to happen. Everything's pointing that it's not. So like Bud now needs to look at, okay, what's my best option? In your opinion, is the fight with Tszyu his next best option?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Bud have expressed that this is the interest he have at this point, right? He is not interested in Boots at all. And frankly, I'm not either. Boots is just starting to make his pathway, his journey. Why take him out this early? I know there are some folk who will tell to me that Bud won't beat Boots. I don't buy it. I don't. And not only because I'm a fan of Bud, but I truly don't believe that Boots at this level will get a win over Bud Crawford. So, yes, I think I need to see the Tszyu fight. And I would love to see it in Australia. I would love to see it in Australia. And I think Bud will win. 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 I think B the last Australian come over here to beat him, Jeff Horn. That was 2018, I believe. And why not allow Mr. Crawford over there and take care of Tszyu in the hometown?
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, HLD, I just want to read this comment. I think it's a good point. However, I thought about something. While if WBO mandates Crawford, that prevents Tszyu from being able to petition the WBO for Crawford. It's a chess move. The only issue with that is that Crawford's a WBO welterweight champion, and Crawford's moving up, brother. Crawford's not going to stay at 147, so it doesn't matter what Tszyu does. That's just my opinion. But it just is what it is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, but George Zapata.
Yeah.
Tszyu, Crawford, you like it?
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. A better fight right now than Keith Thurman. I mean, let's hopefully that Keith doesn't upset the apple cart here, which a slim chance, I think, but it could happen. But that's the better fight. I want to see Bud Crawford fight someone soon, because he's been, like Coach said, he's been out for a while here. It's going to be a year, and he isn't getting any younger. He does stay in the gym. He does look good. He doesn't blow up and come back down. But I want to see him. I don't know how long Bud's got left. You know what I mean? He's approaching that 4-0 mark in a couple of years, and not being active is not good. Not being active is not good. So this is a better fight. Let's hopefully it happens quicker, sooner than later. You know, in this year. We hope it happens sometime soon.
Do you see a reason why Crawford would have to mandate it?
No, I know. I don't think he has to. Well, what, at this point, I know I said the belts mean something for the women's side because they need that recognition. For the men's side, you have people that can actually sell fights. Bud would sell fights. Tszyu would sell fights in Australia. You know, and I think Crystal, you're right. Have it in Australia, it'd be huge in Australia. Tszyu is very big over there, very big. And why not put it there? You know, put it there, and you don't need the belt. Why are you paying them the sanction fees anyway? You don't need the belt. Get rid of it. You know, I think the three main belts it should be that way. It should be that way. 3 belts. I think the WBO, you know, it was that 4 belt that came in, but 3 belts, that's enough.
Now, I don't know the answer to this question. HLD is saying he hasn't vacated. Would Crawford be allowed to keep the welterweight belt and then fight Tszyu for it? Like, I don't know, but
I don't think he, like Coach said, and I heard him indicate that after the Spence fight, he was going to move up to 154 anyways.
Yeah. The rematch is going to be at 154 supposedly. They did
so this is no surprise, you know. And the whole thing about why not just vacate the titles? I mean, again, you know, does it really matter? Like, he won them? Can he just relish the glory of holding them for a little while? He's going to vacate them eventually. It's not like he's holding up the division. It hasn't been, you know, it's been like what, 8 months or something. He's going to vacate him when he moves up. I don't know what the big deal is. Why does he have to vacate him right away?
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, unless they could wiggle and I know the sanctioning bodies can make up the rules as they go, but maybe Paco just wants this fight, and maybe that's why he's speaking it into existence.
It's the big. I mean, let me ask you this: would you say this is the biggest fight at junior middleweight, Crawford and Tszyu?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that, right? That's a fair statement. When you agree? Yeah. And again, you know.
It was Jermell Crawford, but not anymore. After Jermell shit the bed against Canelo, not anymore.
And I've said this before. After the Spence fight, Crawford's profile went up immensely. He was doing a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts, a lot of even mainstream stuff I seen him on. I think he was on CBS in the morning, and he was just everywhere. He was on the Breakfast Club. He's been on Joe Rogan a couple of times. A lot of people know Terrence Crawford now. I think he's crossed over a bit. So I think that now it's funny that Boots wants to fight him, but before the Spence fight, he really wasn't overly enthused about it. His dad was saying, we're going to go the IBF route. So, you know, you had your chance. And now, obviously, now that you see what Crawford became after the Spence fight, now you want it. But Crawford already said, like you know, I hate to keep going back to it, but Coach said it, and he's already indicated that he's going to go to 154 anyways. This is not a surprise, right? And you asked the question about, does it have to be mandated? No, but you know how the sanctioning bodies do it. Like they try to
They want to be more
almost,
important.
they want to inject themselves into it, add more significance to the fight, try to make the fight. The fight's already big as it is, but they want to,
Yeah, but because don't mandatories get like 30% or something like that?
Well, I mean,
so like, why would
here's
Crawford do that?
here's the misconception. You could be named the mandatory, right? But it doesn't have to go to purse bids.
Gotcha.
So if it doesn't go to purse bids, they can negotiate whatever they want to negotiate. That's only if it goes to purse bids. You know what I mean? And a deal can't be made. Then the splits will go. I'm sure Tim and Crawford will be able to settle on a purse. I don't think this fight will probably be one of the easiest fights to make, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but the way Tim moves and the way Terrence Crawford moves, I don't think this would be a hard fight to make at all.
Beeb, not a shot at you, but when you say that the sanctioning fees, sanctioning bodies just want to be irrelevant, it's like here in our business, the health inspector, he's got to find something. He's got to find something to justify that payment. So they're going to find something.
You can have some good ones and some bad ones.
I know.
And
it's
that's
just
the thing.
You could have the cleanest store in ever, and they'll come in. They have to find something.
When they walk around and they start asking you to start taking equipment apart, that means they're really looking for shit wrong.
Look, I had an inspector. I was actually on the phone with Beeb. I had an inspector in my house, and he had like a measuring tape measuring how high the grass was, like a little bit of grass right in the edge of the sidewalk. Yeah. And it's debatable if it's the sidewalk or my house, but I was like, "You're really doing this right now? Like you got nothing better to do, like right now, all right?" Yeah. But hey, look, Chris, are we gonna say something?
Yes. Did you see that? Anyone see on the social media? I don't recall which platform, but Crawford, he posts it's your own people who want you to come out of retirement.
Yeah. Oh. I don't know what he means. That's kind of cryptic? I don't know what does he mean.
I'm not sure, but just saying. I think he has that word in his mind right now.
I think Paco just wants to kind of like put his name out there and and interject himself into the fight a little bit. Oh, this is look what I'm doing. I'm doing this for the betterment of boxing. I'm making sure the best fights happen. You know how they like to move like that.
Okay.
No, but you know what? It's something that D-Style said, and I just thought about it. If the Thurman and Tszyu fight is not, if the title is not on the line because they fighting at 155-pound catch weight, then what does it matter if you want to mandate him for Crawford to fight the winner of Tszyu and Keith Thurman? Well, if Keith Thurman were to win, he won't be a champion anyways because they're not fighting at 155.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Keith Thurman's involved in the whole situation. It's almost like I think Paco just is kind of being forthcoming here and already assuming that Tszyu is going to win that fight. So
I'm assuming that too.
Yeah, I think everyone is. No disrespect to Keith, but
if Keith Thurman wins, not only is it going to ring cats and dogs, but if he wins that fight, he can't mandate shit because he's not going to be the champion. It's at a catch weight. So I just think he had a brain fart and totally forgot, and not even smart in his part because he's not going to get 3%, right, for this fight.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, I don't know. Look, guys, this has been a great roundtable show. Shout out to Steve Kemp for coming on. Lyndon from the Boxing Deep Dive. Make sure you guys subscribe to his channel. Great content, man. And catch Crystal on Women Crushing Wednesday. That's In the Ring with Christine. Make sure you subscribe to the Big Sis. George Zapata, the Zapata brand boxing podcast. I look forward to being on this podcast and stuff. So just get with me, brother, and we'll get that done. Yep. And Joe B, Ringside Reporter, every Thursday. Check him out next week and all that. And of course, the king of the stream, who's got like millions of people watching him every afternoon here on YouTube, Coach Malachi. Hey, Coach, close it out with any final thoughts, bro, so we could wrap this one out.
Yeah, man. Just everybody just watch more different weight divisions in boxing. We do know that boxing is doing very, very well around the world. Over here in America, it's doing good, but social media is all about the popular fighters. It's about Canelo. He's the hottest name in boxing right now. Canelo shows I've done been crazy. The Crawfords, who else? the Tank Davises. I just advise everybody just to watch more. Sorry about that, guys. Hold on, sorry about that. That's the all going on. That's Red Glazier. Sorry about that.
Should get them on.
just watch. What you say? No, just watch more different weight divisions, and not get caught up in the circus around the major fighters and stuff like that. It's gonna play out. It's gonna do what it's gonna do. Sanctioning bodies don't mean anything. I hate to say it, but they don't mean nothing no more, man. Your top tens, ranking systems. They don't even follow their own rules. So don't get caught up in all that, man. Just watch the other weight divisions. A lot of boxing going well. It is, but just don't get caught up in the big name fighters.
Coach, I was wondering, could you do that in your Floyd Mayweather voice?
Which one? Oh, what I just said? The floor. You told.
Man.
Like I said before, we believe in working smarter, not harder. Mayweather promotes us in the PBC. We're a big happy family. Canelo left. He left. Hell of a fighter. But we didn't need him. We have Rolly Romero. He's a star in the making. Even though he eat crayons and drive a Bugatti around Las Vegas. You know what I mean. So yeah, man.
Oh man. Well, with that said, guys, this is D-Style Boxing. Thanks everybody. But once again, thanks for your time, guys. Keep it boxing. We're out of here. Peace.
Move that Eddie is making for AJ. Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal?